Hey, Julian.
Cool. Hey, so I was in the meditation watching how I this constant reference to the to an image of myself, of myself, or my face, or of my body, and every time it was like a constant reference, and every time it was a different image, supposedly me.
Yeah,
And yeah,
that's the river that I'm in the metaphor of the river.
yeah,
It's a flow of images of I, and I'm supposed to be that, but it's just the river,
yeah,
and you're
yeah.
trying to make
And
it.
yeah, and I bet that goes on almost constantly. So, most of the time, I don't notice it.
Yeah,
Um, but I mean, there's nothing to do, and in the sense, just noticing it doesn't need to stop, right?
no,
It stops once you see deeper, or
it doesn't stop. The mind never stops. I mean, when you die, probably, um, but it calms because to a very large degree it calms. But what happens is we would tend to interpret that you need to calm the mind in order to get there, and it's the other way around. When you see, then the mind calms. It's like a side effect. When what There's different levels of what can be seen, but what you're describing is important. Is to see how all this constant effort in trying to refer to an I that's a thought and try to make that be I. But the more you see that activity, the more it becomes transparent and clear to you. You'll be able to see that it's kind of not that useful. There's actually there is very little use for doing that constantly. Now, I can, if I'm having a conversation with you and we talk about my day yesterday, and I tell you a story, I'm going to invoke an image of me and tell you a story about yesterday, me, and there's going to be an invoking of that image, but I'm not grasping that as I. It's like, think about you yesterday. Is that who you are? No, that's just a memory of you yesterday. That's how I experience talking to you about me now. Any sense of an image of I that I'm referring to appears to me to be obvious to be an image like the image of me yesterday or the image of some other person that I saw yesterday on the street. It's just
mm,
another image, but it's useful. If I'm talking to you and I tell you a story about me, I invoke my mind, I can imagine the person and talk to you about that. But it's not experienced as like that's what I am. Or there isn't this grasping of trying to make that I. And so the rest of the day, if I'm not talking to you about that, I might at moments contemplate something that I reference a thought about I, but it's known to be a thought. It's like I'm doing a calculation. It's like if I'm doing 1 plus 1 is 2, I don't think 1 is me and 2 is the other, and it's just 1 plus 1 is 2. There's a usefulness in that. There's a usefulness in contemplating the person Nicholas, but what you can start to see is that very little of the day in general that is needed. It's like doing math. How often do you need to do math in the day? But you could think, well, but every choice I make, I need to contemplate. Not really. Choices can come from a much deeper place, and actually, they don't work like that.
So, okay. So you're saying like what is just needed is to keep looking at that, and at some point there is kind of like a choice that says, I don't need to do this so much, and you just decide to stop doing it.
No, it's not a choice. At that level, the seeing has a consequence.
Mm.
It's like it's like believing in Santa Claus
Mm.
and then seeing that Santa Claus is your father. You see the evidence. So the belief in Santa Claus being some old person coming from the North Pole, you don't have to you don't have to make a choice there. You don't have to make a choice to believe that Santa Claus is your father. The belief that Santa Claus was an old man in the North Pole disappears as a belief. It becomes known to be just a thought, just a story. I often say it's a choice, but in a different context. What is a choice in a deep sense? It's a choice to believe that Santa Claus is real. It's a choice to believe that you are only the image in your mind. But let's not confuse things with that, because it's different kinds of language are useful for different kinds of moments. In this particularly, it's not a choice. You once you see that the whole process of me is images, I. The more you see that, the more you start to realize, well, that's not me. It cannot be me, and what's the point of this? And something kind of can get severed, like something can get breaks, which is the ability to believe in a story. It's like with Santa Claus, you start to see different levels of evidence, and towards the end, you're really wanting to believe in Santa Claus because you're very attached to that story, and it's a very painful thing to let go of. There's a lot of these fond memories and this emotional attachment. But at some point, you see through it and you grow up. Or in this case, you wake up. You can't go back. You can't. There's nothing I can do now to convince you that Santa Claus is real.
So that's what you call me-ing. And I notice the pull is stronger with certain things, with certain stories, with like
Yes.
in the meditation, I started thinking of the story with my ex and my separation, and I noticed it pulled me more into it. And
Yeah.
that's that's because there's more emotion around it, or the spell is bigger there, or
Yeah. What really drives that is some uncomfortable sensation, some pain or fear. And then the story is a way to separate from that and control it or numb it. But once you're able to realize, you can see that no matter what pain or fear appears, it's just an energetic that comes and goes like a river. Then trying to control that becomes unnecessary. It becomes obvious to you. It's like what's the point of and you start to have this experience where I think this it's very common. You start to have the experience where you start to experience a back and forth in ways of relating and interpreting. So you can go into that identification, that contraction, and it has this very particular flavor that's like suffering and contraction and like repetitive, a little tortuous. And then you can have more of the freedom to drop that because you've seen through it enough and go into the actual sensation that it's helping you numb. And you realize the sensation is just some form of energetic, and it's an aliveness, even if it's fear and pain. It's a life force. And then that can move and it can start to feel quite beautiful, quite loving. And then you start to taste these two back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, or back into the contraction, torture, suffering, identification, and then into the sense of the free fall into the openness and vulnerability of the energetic of fear and pain moving. Whatever discomfort is moving. And at some point it starts to become very, very clear. It's like you start to see very clearly the two options. One is an option of eating junk food, and the other one is like gourmet sushi and gourmet food. But at first, you don't realize that. At first, this is how I was using this metaphor with a friend recently. At first, it's like a child that you give him like McDonald's burger and fries, and the other option is like caviar or sushi to a like 3, 4 year old. It's gonna take a bite of that sushi and spit it in your face. But when you're older and more mature and metaphorically, you still might prefer in reality the burger, but McDonald's. But as a metaphor, you start to realize, no, one is much better. It's much more valuable. It's much more nutritious. It's much higher quality. It's just better in every way. Then it's still, you could still call it a choice, but it's just hard to prefer to eat the burger every day. It's hard to prefer to contract and go into suffering when you can be in open, vital aliveness, in loving peacefulness, even when there is fear and pain. Because fear and pain is open aliveness. When it comes, it's not, fear and pain comes and goes. But we're contracted all day, every day, to avoid it.
Yeah.
That's why I say quite often to go towards fear and pain, but then that can be taken like as a method, and then it's like masochism. I just mean, notice that that's what the whole storm is a intent to avoid that.